All right, what's up, y'all? So this episode is going to be a review of 2022, highlighting what I consider to be the best episodes, videos, posts that I've done over the past year. And by the way, benefit to you, most of these are going to be conversations with other people, so you're not just hearing me talk if you decide to go back and listen to these things or watch these things. But time flies. I mean, I can't believe that we're at the end of 2022 already. And it's crazy how as you get older, life seems to go faster. You know, when you're younger, you hear those kind of things from adults and you don't really pay much attention to it. And then as you get older, and sure enough, like things just seem to move really, really fast. And it makes me appreciate the journey even more. It also gives me a sense of urgency because I can see the mortality in myself and I can see the mortality in other people around me. And I feel like there's this finite amount of time to get the things done that you want to get done. And that's a plug for making health your number one priority. Like it should be your number one priority above and beyond anything and everything else, including your family, including your friends, including the things that you care about. Because when you have your health, you can show up to those things better. You can show up to those things as your best self. And when you don't have health, you're in some ways a burden to yourself and others, and you can't show up being your best. So I just want to make a plug for if that's not your priority, now is the time to make it a priority. Every single one of these episodes that I'm going to cover start out as an exclusive video, usually a live talk inside my online community, SuperHumans United. And so we get to participate in these as they're happening and ask questions. It's really dynamic. And then the videos get saved as a recorded episode inside the community, organized so it's easy to find. And then we also provide all the resources and links, and there's usually handouts associated with each one of these talks. So I'm just saying that, you know, these talks, sometimes we put them out to the public, and that's after we've done them live in the community and after we provided all the resources to our people. And I'm trying to reach a lot of people and empower as many people as I can. So that's why we do put some of this stuff out into the public space, but it's not the same as being a member of the community. So if you're looking for a way to simplify your health and nutrition, then give us a shot because it's a freaking great place, all right? Animal-based nutrition combined with ancestral-based health and lifestyle factors. Like it is a winning combination, 10-year track record. We keep getting better. I mean, that's what all these talks and videos are about, learning new concepts and ideas, changing our stances on things. And so that's something that we're really good about, updating what it is that we do, our methodology and protocols to align with what we know to be true and what we know works, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to get into what I consider to be my best post from this past year. And again, I'm going to reference the title of the podcast and or video, the episode number if you're listening to this on the podcast. If you're on YouTube, then I'll give you the links to the videos and we'll just get going. So one of the best posts that I had, we do supplement posts every freaking year, okay? Because supplements are an ever-changing thing. And years ago when I did supplement posts, and I'm talking like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, they were very, very complicated, you know, very complicated protocols. That's why I started out calling it strategic supplementation. I still call it strategic supplementation because we are trying to be strategic, but it was strategic like a freaking shotgun approach and just trying to cover as many little things as we possibly could, okay? So our stance has changed a lot, you know. I boiled it down and simplified things to understand that the most powerful thing you can do is eat real food with a focus on animal-based foods and also throwing in there some of the nose to tail elements, okay? So if I had to summarize, and so this episode is on supplements, the most recent one, I feel like the most beneficial one that summarizes and encapsulates everything that I feel like is up to date and relevant is going to be episode 189. It's called Supplements Q&A plus Water Cooler Chat, okay? So the first thing you definitely want to do when it comes to supplementation is support your digestion. Now, most people, as we age, we're going to lose digestive function. All right, we're going to lose our capacity to produce hydrochloric acid. We're going to lose our capacity to secrete enzymes in very active amounts and high amounts. And this is part of the aging process. This is also partly due to a lot of dysfunction that we've done over the course of our life that we're trying to undo as far as the damage goes. You know, so I think supporting digestion is always a good idea. You know, you need to support digestion when you have digestive symptoms like gas and bloating and belching around meals and constipation or diarrhea, heartburn. All those classic signs would be an indication that you definitely want to support digestion, but then I'm a big fan of supporting digestion no matter what. Like, I don't have any digestive issues, but I continue to take my betaine hydrochloric acid and my enzymes and my things to support my gallbladder and bile flow. So one of the greatest things that I've learned that was super inexpensive and super effective is apple cider vinegar. Now, we learned this way back in nutritional therapy school. But I didn't really give much credence to it because I just felt like I was like, it's apple cider vinegar, right? How can that be anywhere near as beneficial as taking some supplements? And it's not as powerful as taking some hydrochloric acid, but apple cider vinegar seems to have the same effect of taking a hydrochloric acid supplement, not to the same potency, but you still get a tremendous benefit. So that's usually where I start my clients. When they have some digestive dysfunction, it almost always starts with hypochlorhydria, or also known as low stomach acid. And when you get that upper GI or the stomach really acidic, it can digest proteins and assimilate minerals really well. And then the rest of that digestive chyme, after it's been acidified, moves into the small intestine. And when it's really acidified, it signals the whole system to digest things properly. So I think that acidity component is super crucial. And you can just start out by doing apple cider vinegar. Now, I do have a digestive support protocol, which includes 3 different supplements, and they are probably the most popular supplements in the SHT. So I referenced that in this video, and if you have any interest in it, I'm pretty sure I have like a link to my store where people purchase those things, okay? So the first thing that you want to do when it comes to supplementation is support your digestion, because most of us are experiencing weaker digestion as we get older. And by the way, the better you digest your food, the more you're getting the nutrients out of the food, which is the reason that you're consuming food in the first place. And the stronger your digestion, the more you're potentially digesting pathogens before they become a problem inside your system. So digestion is the first foundation in functional medicine and holistic health, okay? So supporting digestion is great. Next thing when it comes to supplementation is thinking in terms of mimicking eating animals nose to tail. Because most of us, when we eat animal foods, we're probably eating a lot of muscle meat, ground beef, steaks, chicken breast, pork chops, and things like that, right? But the reality is that this animal that we are and that we're trying to facilitate is much more than just muscle meat. And so it would benefit us to consume the things that this body is made of that we're not getting from muscle meat. And if you had to think about it, like if you think about the proportions of your body, as far as like what proportion is muscle compared to what proportion is organ meats and things like that, that might be a good way to look at how much you want to consume of these different things. So what I usually recommend is to mimic eating animals nose to tail. A couple of really good modern day hacks would be to consume bone stock on a regular basis. And I'd say consuming, if you can, at least a cup a day, up to a quart a day. And then also consuming collagen on a regular basis, because collagen is the protein matrix that makes up the majority of the protein in our body. So if we have like 100% of the protein in our body, 35% of that protein is collagen matrix based. Collagen is the main protein matrix in bones, nail, hair, connective tissue, including tendons and ligaments and cartilage and skin. And we don't get a lot of that when we eat muscle meat. So supplementing with collagen is going to be extremely beneficial. So those are 2 really easy modern day kind of biohacks to mimic eating animals nose to tail: consuming bone stock regularly, consuming collagen regularly. And then I would say try to eat organs once a week. I'm in the habit of eating liver and heart now most days because I have it in the fridge, but at a minimum, if you got like a quarter pound of liver once a week, and you could prepare that any way that you want. I have some really good recipes where you sneak it into some burgers and meatloaf and you can't even tell it's there. Liver is a nutrient powerhouse. It's a multivitamin, multi-mineral, and then if you can get some heart in there, I think that's probably going to be the most palatable, and then liver, and accessible. So consuming organs once a week, a quarter pound once a week would be really beneficial. And then I'm a huge fan of taking organ supplements. In fact, I take so many different organ supplements, it's ridiculous. But if you had to start somewhere, taking a multi-organ, I sell one through Biotics called Neonatal Multi, and then maybe a liver supplement. So that would be the next tier in supplements. It would be digestion, and then mimicking eating animals nose to tail. All right, and then we have our third tier, which are some nutrients that most people in the functional and holistic health and ancestral health realms are recommending. All right, so this is how you can kind of start to see and pull consistencies from people. And these are things like vitamin D3, trying to get like a good dose of, I think 4,000 IUs to 10,000 IUs of D3 is going to be really, really solid. Vitamin K2 is a powerhouse. You can get this from some animal foods, but probably not in the animal foods that most of us consume. You're going to find a lot of K2 in liver, in depending on the quality of the eggs, maybe some egg yolks, maybe some fermented foods like cheeses and sauerkrauts and things like that. But K2 would be something that it's a no-brainer to supplement with, and I recommend a broad spectrum K2. By the way, K2 is what Dr. Weston Price, he was the guy the dentist at the turn of the 20th century that traveled the world looking for healthy populations that were primitive to try to figure out what it was they did that made them so healthy. What he noticed was, as he documented the way they ate and analyzed their food in the lab and tried to get some nutrient content breakdown, he found this nutrient that he called activator X, which we're pretty sure is vitamin K2. And he said without this nutrient, they would not have that robust health. They would not form properly. They would not look and perform the way that they did. And with this nutrient, that's why he called it the activator, it seemed to have this effect on telling the body how to use specific nutrients and minerals and where to deposit them. Really, really fascinating nutrient. I have some really good resources. One of my favorite is Chris Masterdon, Nutrition PhD, where he has this vitamin K2 resource, and it's just unbelievable what this nutrient does. But again, we probably don't get a lot of it in our diet, so that's why I recommend supplementing with it. I think everyone would benefit from supplementing with some vitamin C, anywhere from 500 milligrams a day up to 2 grams. There's some other things that you can experiment with, but I think those are relatively foundational. Okay, so I have a supplement protocol that I sell through my store that includes all these things. So if you're supporting digestion, you're taking the apple cider vinegar, a swig, a tablespoon or two. You can mix it with a little bit of water before every time you eat. All right, it's going to help you manage your blood sugar levels. It's going to help you acidify your chyme in your stomach and digest your proteins and things a little bit better. And then mimicking animals nose to tail, you're taking some collagen most days, you're getting some bone stock in most days, you're consuming liver maybe once a week, and then you're also taking some organ supplements. And then I like this product that we sell called Immune Support Packs, which has a combination of most of the things that I talked about, like the D3, the vitamin C, it's got vitamin A, quercetin, zinc, all these things in balanced amounts. And then in addition to that, I recommend people take a K2 supplement. So anyway, go back, check out that episode. It's the latest and greatest in supplements. Again, 189 supplements Q&A, water cooler chat, and it is freaking great. Okay. Now, next episode, and this comes up all the time with my clients. And in fact, I just had a conversation yesterday with someone. And this is how to talk to family and friends about health. We all know people. Once you get into this healthy lifestyle, the right healthy lifestyle, once you get into ancestral-based health and animal-based nutrition, the way that we teach it, you can't help but, number one, have compassion for other people as you see them suffering, because you know that you have the answer. You know that you have the solution. You know that you have what it is that they need to do, and you see how backwards everything that they're doing is. So there's that compassion, but then there's also this urge to want to jump in and share this information with as many people as you can. I learned the hard way. You can't do that. People are not going to be receptive to you inserting yourself and telling them what to do. Because why? I asked my client yesterday, I said, because she was really uncomfortable at these, lunch and dinner situations that were social situations, because people would say, how come you're not eating that, right? And I said, so what's the problem with you telling them why you eat the way that you do? And she said, well, because it's going to make them defensive. And I said, exactly right. If you say, I don't eat, gluten's bad for you and you shouldn't eat wheat, and you go into this rant about, why you do the things that you do, there's a way to do it, but if you go into a rant in that way, people's walls are going to go up because they get defensive. It's like, okay, so what, you're better than me, so you're changing your diet and I'm not, so you're not eating that and I'm sitting here eating it, so now I'm just a big piece of crap, right? There's something along those lines, and it happens unconsciously. It's not something people think about, and it's just natural human condition to get defensive when you get questioned about something. If I'm sitting there working on a fitness movement and someone comes up and points out a correction in my posture or my form, even though they may be completely accurate and correct, there's initially this little defensiveness that goes up, right? So, but you got to learn how to say those things to people. So we had this great discussion yesterday, and I'm just going to cover some of the notes here. If you go back and pay attention to this episode, it is episode 190, how to talk to family and friends about health. The first thing is understanding that how do you like to be talked about things, right? Just put yourself in their position, in their shoes. How do you like to receive this information? There's a difference between being told what to do and then also being someone approaching you in a compassionate way. So the first step, I think, is just to let your actions speak for themselves, right? It's just to be yourself, and don't be vocal about it, and try not to talk too much about it unless someone asks you about it. Resist what we call the righting reflex in the coaching world, which is this desire to just correct anything and everything that you see happening in front of you. And then I would highly recommend, for a lot of this, we're talking about your friends and family members, right? You found the gift of health, and then you see your friends and family members struggling and suffering, and you know the end result of that, right? If they don't do something about it, you know where that's going to lead. So you can't help but want to say or do something about it. But what you can do is just listen, because guaranteed, every single one of these people are suffering. They're going to share something about that suffering. And if you listen and pay attention, it's usually a complaint. It's usually, talking about how they're not happy with, how they feel, or their body, or their digestion, or their energy levels, their skin, or something along those lines. And as you're listening to those things, those are things that you can reflect back to them. So as you listen to those things that they're unhappy with, you can say, hey, how long has that been going on? Act like don't even act, be genuinely interested in their well-being, and ask them questions, open-ended questions to get them to talk about how long has that been going on? How long has that been bothering you? And so what would you like to be different? What if things could be different for you? What if you could heal that? What if you could get to the weight that you wanted to? What's your vision of health? What do you think is possible? And you can have these things written down. I have it in our resources PDF. But imagine being on the receiving end of that, and having someone genuinely interested in you and asking you these questions and trying to learn about you. And it also gets you, as the person suffering and struggling, to start to connect with what it is that you think might be possible. What it is that it might be like to be healed or in a better position or situation as far as how you feel, okay? So when you do that, then people are open to information. Also, I'd highly recommend affirming and praising the things that they're doing good and right, because most of these people that are suffering and struggling, when they're vocal about the things that they're not happy with, they also usually share within that the fact that they're working on things. I'm trying this new diet, or I'm doing this new thing, or I'm taking this new supplement. And so you can always say, hey, it sounds like you really care about yourself and your health. Sounds like you're trying some really cool stuff, Sounds like you've made some great changes. Sounds like you're making some great changes. Now, again, imagine being on the receiving end of that and getting some kudos and credit, right? That feels really good. So, again, these are people that you care about. You can listen to their pain points. You can affirm and praise what it is that they're doing well and good, and you can reflect back to them things that you're taking in from all that. So it sounds like you want more energy, right? And, you want to feel better. You want to be happy with the way that you look. You're putting in all this work, right? Then if you want to share information, they're going to be way more receptive to it. And the way to share information is to first ask permission. You got to ask permission, all right? Because if you just say some stuff, then again, that's when the defensive walls go up. But if you say something like, well, I hear all that, would you like to hear what's worked for me? Or would you mind if I shared what works for me? Would you like some more information? I've got some really good resources. I got a great, phenomenal health coach. I've got this great community that I learn a lot of stuff from. Would you like to hear about this community that I'm part of? But regardless how you do that or what you say, if you ask permission to share, I've never had anyone say, no, I don't want you to. I've never said, if I said, do you mind if I share this thing with you? I've never had someone say, no, I don't want you to. Okay. So, and then that's it. Now, when to get back to the social situations, right? When my client was asking me yesterday, how to handle specific things in these situations, when someone asks you, why are you not eating that specific food? Or why don't you eat bread? Or why do you eat this way? So let's just take, why don't you eat bread? Why aren't you eating these crackers right here? Then instead of going on this rant about how gluten's bad for you, which is, that probably lends itself to more of a debate and argument than anything else. All you have to do is explain your experiential knowledge. So I asked my client yesterday, I said, so what happens if you do eat those crackers? She goes, well, I feel like crap. And I beat myself up and I hate myself for it because I know that I shouldn't, because it makes me feel a certain way. I said, That's what you got to say to people. And they say, how come you're not eating bread or crackers or cake? And you just say, look, I love it. I love cake. I love cupcakes. I love cookies. I love bread, but I just can't do it because it makes me feel like junk. I legitimately can say every time I have gluten, whether it's a sip of a beer or a piece of bread or a cracker or a cookie, then some eczema on my foot flares up and I can't sleep at night because it itches so much and it cracks and it's just like, it's not worth it for me. Nobody's going to argue with that, right? So that's the best way to explain why you do or don't do things, okay? Now, for more information, again, I'd go back to episode 190 or how to talk to family and friends about health. It's a really, really great episode. All right, next episode I'd recommend watching or listening to is my first talk on preparedness, okay? Now, this is a topic I'm very passionate about. I'm not necessarily one of those big name hotshot experts, but I'm a self-proclaimed expert because I've been working on this for years. And I talk to people all day, every day that are in the same mindset. We kind of see where the world's going. And it's like we know that being prepared is going to be extremely useful and beneficial. Even if you never end up using any of it, just knowing that you got it is really, really useful. So I work on it all the time, and I feel like I'm a really good teacher for it because I'm just like you. I am a normal person trying to figure out how to put this stuff together. And when you go look at preparedness websites and courses, it's so complicated and convoluted that you really come out of it not knowing where to start or what to do. Okay. So in my first preparedness talk, which is episode 195, emergency preparedness, don't be scared, be prepared. I'm just going to summarize the main takeaways from this one. In that first preparedness talk, I talk about the foundational step in preparedness, and that is this little three-tiered system. It would be getting your personal health in order, right? How important is that? You don't want, if the crap goes down, you don't want to be dependent on medical system, and you don't want to be incapable or unfunctional because you got some health situation going on. And I know for some of us, in some ways, that's out of control, but to the best of your abilities, you want to be as less dependent on the medical system and less dependent on others as possible, okay? So getting your health in order is extremely important, and that also includes not just nutrition and sleep, but also fitness so that you're functional and capable. You know, you want to be able to move and carry stuff and climb over things, you know, heaven forbid something like that happen, you know? And then you want to have your wealth situated, right? That means paying off your debt, and that means have some kind of a savings plan put into place. I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. That's just me if you want to learn more about it. I want to do an episode on Bitcoin so bad, but I'm not there yet. So anyway, health, wealth, and then you want, the first step in preparedness is 2 weeks of home self-reliance. Okay, that means stocking up on the things that you would need to shelter in place in your home for 2 weeks so that you're not dependent upon any outside resources to survive for those 2 weeks. All right. So that means water, food, and anything else that you can think of as you imagine going through 2 weeks of being at home being at home with yourself or with your family, and not having any resources coming from the outside world to some degree. Okay. So that talk, we go through everything to consider. And again, it's a great talk, but the resources and all the checklists and things are inside our community. So you got to go there to get that. But yeah, I thought that was a really amazing talk. It's been honed. You know, I did one last year and it wasn't anywhere near as solid as this one. So again, that is episode 195, emergency preparedness. Okay. Now, next one was a relatively controversial one, how to choose a doctor. And I think this is one of the best videos that I've ever put out. This was based on an experience that I had with several doctors in Las Vegas. I had some that were really good and supported real food nutrition, especially eating animal foods and saturated fats. And one of them was a cardiologist that is in support of what we're doing. And I'm just talking about local doctors in Vegas. And then I had a couple that were just like anti everything that we did, even though all of my members and clients and would go to these people and they would be losing weight and feeling better and signs and symptoms, you know, all changing in a better direction. And yet for some reason they had a problem with the way that I taught them how to eat. So I would say, in summary, I would just go watch or listen to this episode. It's episode 198, How to Choose a Doctor. Take health advice from someone that appears to be healthy and knows what the heck they're talking about, right? Especially if they got a good track record. I've been doing this 10 years. I'm not saying that I haven't made mistakes along the way, but you know, overwhelmingly, you know, my experience and the results that I get with my clients is nothing but positive. Okay. If all your health markers are improving and moving in a good direction, and then you visit with a doctor and they are scaring you because you have a high LDL or some other just kind of off marker, then I would say, you know, I'm not saying don't take those things into account. What I would say is celebrate in the positive changes that you're experiencing, and use those things as check engine light for you to go do your own research, all right? Or talk to someone else and get a second opinion, or have some more measurements run, or something along those lines, right? Don't let all your hard work go to waste because you go see a doctor and all of a sudden they tell you everything you're doing is wrong because you got some number that's off, when you know that what you're doing is right because you feel it and you see it and other people see it in you, okay? It's better to commit to a way of eating that is sustainable for life than it is to commit to something that is too restrictive. So a lot of medical professionals are going to recommend that you do something that is just not sustainable. It's not possible. I guarantee if you ask them, is this the way you eat? Like the majority of them, no, I can't do it, right? So it's better, let's pretend that animal foods weren't that optimal for you, which they are. They're probably the most optimal of all the food groups. But let's just say there was something suboptimal about it, right? But you have this omnivorous way of eating that includes animal foods and also includes all these other good foods and fruits and vegetables, and it allows you to commit to a diet for the rest of your life. That's way better than trying to be 100% vegan because you think that's the way to go, and then you keep falling off of being vegan and coming back and eating a bunch of processed food and having all these relapses and rebounds because it's not sustainable, right? So it's better to commit to something that you can do for a lifetime that's sustainable, that maybe slightly less than optimal than it is to commit to something that's so restrictive you can't do it anyway. But anyway, the SHT way of eating, animal-based nutrition, I'm telling you right now, when I say animal-based, it's acknowledging and prioritizing and emphasizing animal foods, although we advocate balance. We advocate plants and carbohydrates and starches and fruits and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, a medical doctor, by the way, with the right mindset, and by the way, there's more and more of them popping up because more of them are waking up to the truth, and more of them are becoming disillusioned with what medicine has turned into, which is basically, it's turned into a prescription plug and play with symptoms, So if you find a medical doctor that is aligned with real food, and especially ancestral-based nutrition, embracing animal foods and saturated fats, they can support you in your health efforts. We have an evolutionary past and a digestive system that clearly tells us what it is that we're supposed to eat and how we're supposed to eat. Most doctors, I think, have really good intentions. They get into the field with really good intentions, but they just don't get trained in nutrition, right? So you can use medical doctors for what I typically use them for, which is, hey, I just want to get this blood work so I can interpret it myself. And then I'll take it to another doctor or a functional medicine doctor and then let them give me their expert opinion. But bottom line is, listen to this episode or watch this episode. I thought it was a really, really good talk about the difference between these different doctors and how to handle those different situations, okay? All right, so next episode, 199, how do you eat all that meat? This is one of my favorite episodes, and a lot of this information was inspired by, oh my gosh, Zoe Harcum. So sorry, because she's just so good at putting some of this information together. But as you move into, I keep saying, I'm assuming that a lot of you guys listening are not SHT, right? But let's just pretend you are. Like, as you move into an SHT way of doing things, animal-based nutrition, ancestral-based health, right? Inevitably, or if you move into anything that embraces animal foods, whether it's paleo or keto or something along those lines, inevitably you're going to get people ask you, like, how the heck can you eat all this saturated fat because it's so bad for you? So this was just a really good video where I talked about, it was like fatty acids 101. What are fatty acids? What does it mean to be saturated? What does it mean to be monounsaturated and polyunsaturated? And we can actually look at these things differently. Saturated means it's actually a really stable and strong fat, which is something that you want. You want to build yourself with stable and strong fats. Monounsaturated means it's an unstable fat, and polyunsaturated means it's very unstable. So that kind of gives you an idea of what fats to consume and how much of them. But by the way, all fats contain all the other fats, right? So anytime you eat something that has some fat in it, it's going to have a certain percentage of all the other fats. Now, some things are dominant saturated, dominant monounsaturated, dominant polyunsaturated, but it's impossible to avoid any of those fatty acid groups. And then I go into some information about, is saturated fat harmful, which is not, how much saturated fat is actually in meat, and what you'll find is there's not a lot of saturated fat in meat. In fact, most meat is dominantly monounsaturated fat. Saturated fat usually comes in second behind monounsaturated fat. Monounsaturated fat is the fatty acid that most people would tout as being extremely healthy. And by the way, meat is mostly water, and then it's mostly protein, and then it's some fat. And by the way, that fat is mostly monounsaturated. So we go through some information as far as that goes, and then we talk about some consumption guidelines. And it's a relatively short talk, but it does give you a really good educational foundation in fatty acids and how to talk to other people when they ask you that question. How the heck do you eat all that saturated fat and meat? Because you know it's so bad for you, right? All right, so again, that was episode 199, How Do You Eat All That Meat? Now, next one is episode 202, and that is preparedness on the topic of bags. Okay, so bags, it's fun. Everyone loves putting their bags together, emergency preparedness bags. That includes your bug out bags, and that includes your EDC or your everyday carry. Some people recommend a get home bag, which I do like having a get home bag, something you keep in your vehicle. I recommend a wake up bag, which is something that just has, actually I have mine right here, a little fireproof bag that has all your important critical documents in it, and then an extra set of keys and some cash. And so if the house is on fire and you jumped up and you had to grab something, get out of the house, like you got what you need to start over, you know. So I don't think there's a whole lot that I want to go through as far as that goes, because most of this information is in the video and or the podcast episode. But I think that was probably one of our most popular episodes. And again, that is 202, preparedness in various bags. All right, so next is episode 209, how to optimize your protein intake. Man, I was so proud of this talk. It was super solid. Live call we did, a lot of questions and answers, and so much has come out of this. My mindset has completely switched from, we used to be master fasters. You know, the SHT, we were all about fasting. We went through years of, you know, the more you could fast, the better. You know, a lot of us were doing like a 2 or 3 day fast or a 5 day fast at least once a month. And a lot of us were eating one meal a day indefinitely. I did that for probably 3 years straight, you know. And I think there's a use for fasting for sure. It can be a useful tool, especially if you're coming into a healthier way of doing things and you have a lot of weight to lose. It can be a great ally. What I'm learning, though, is that it's probably more important to get the nutrition that you need in than it is to be obsessed about fasting. So then the question comes, what is the perfect balance of those two things? And that's what we try to hash out in this live talk. But I'm gonna go through here real quick. So first of all, the USDA and World Health Organization have protein recommendations that just don't make any sense whatsoever. And what we now understand and believe, and what I've known intuitively, being a guy that's worked out my entire life, is that the more muscle you have, the better you live. The more muscle you have, the stronger your bones. The more muscle you have, typically, the more capable you are. And when you think about what aging is a disease of wasting away. So the more muscle you have, the more reserves you have to waste away from. You know, hopefully you're not wasting away because you stay working out for as long as you can. But if you're strong, you're going to live a better life, period. So that's where this idea comes in. Like, what's priority? Is priority fasting so that you enhance longevity and you're this freaking lean popsicle stick and, yeah, maybe your health markers are good, but you're not very capable? Or is it more important to work out hard and have enough protein coming in so that you can build strong muscle and strong bones and be functional as you live the rest of your life? So, I love the approach that Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and her team, Dr. Stepp, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, they recommend focusing on what it is that you want versus the diseased organ or state, right? So when we're so obsessed with losing fat and fat as being the problem and obesity, right? Versus, why don't we focus on building strength and muscle? I try to combine those two words, structural. Why don't we focus on building strength and muscle? Right? When you focus on building strength and muscle, that implies that you're going to be losing fat and implies you're going to be improving all your health markers. But that's a better, more positive focus. And when you focus on that, like, your nutrition changes, your outlook changes, your training changes. You know, you start to prioritize different things when you have a different focus. What we did talk about is, so there's 2 ways that you can stimulate muscle protein synthesis, main 2 ways. One is resistance training, a resistance training to failure. And it doesn't matter whether it's high reps, lower weight, or low reps and higher weight. What you want to do resistance training with strength-based movements, and you want to train to failure periodically, every body part 1 to 2 times a week. So that's one way to stimulate muscle protein synthesis or growth, right? The other way is by eating protein. And what you need from a protein perspective is, ideally you're getting about 30 grams of protein in a sitting, which is going to give you the right amino acid profile to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So the big takeaways from this talk, and the talk is amazing, by the way, the big takeaways are, when it comes to nutrition, you want to be eating a certain amount of protein in a day, right? So for most of us, I'd say a minimum of 100 grams of protein in a day, but ideally you're bumping that up to a gram of protein per pound of body weight, per pound of ideal body weight, right? So you have your daily protein requirement, but then per meal, you want to get these boluses to stimulate muscle protein synthesis or muscle growth. And that means eating per meal 30 grams of protein or more. So then if we try to answer the question, like, how do I balance fasting and eating? Well, now that I understand I need to be getting at least 100 grams of protein in a day, and I also need to be getting at least 30 grams of protein in a meal, if I eat 3 meals in a day, then I can do that. I can eat 35 grams of protein plus per meal, or I can get 50 grams of protein in my first meal, a skimpy middle meal, and then 20 or 30 grams of protein in my evening meal. Once I get down to 2 meals, then I really have to be conscious about the amount of protein I get at those meals. I have to get, ideally, at least 50 grams of protein at each meal, or compensate with one of the other meals. And it's possible. This is what I do most days. But once you start to get into 1 meal a day, it's almost impossible to get all the protein that you need and all the nutrition that you need. And for a lot of people, it doesn't feel good to try to digest that much food at one sitting. So summarizing that, again, I would just watch or listen to this episode, but I think it's better to focus on building strength and muscle and functioning capacity. And that means training hard. And that also, and regardless of what your age is or what your capacities are, you start where you are and you do what you can, right? But then also focusing on protein and focusing on getting a certain amount of protein in a day and then getting a certain amount of protein in per meal. And that's where you have to experiment. How many meals am I going to have in a day to get the amount of protein that I need? Right now I'm bouncing back and forth between having 2 meals of food that are both about 40 to 50 grams of protein, and then having a morning whey protein isolate shake. All right, that's been working really, really well for me. And I feel great in the gym. I'm still improving. And so anyway, that episode is 209, how to optimize your protein intake. All right, and then we only got 2 more. So episode 214, this is how we can save the planet. This was my interview with, Alan Williams. This is my interview with Alan Williams of Regenerative Ag, Understanding Ag. Okay, I'm so sorry, Alan. This was one of my favorite talks. All right, this was all about what is regenerative agriculture? How does it differ from conventional agriculture? How did we get to what we're doing with conventional agriculture? Because it probably started with good intentions, right? And what can we do if we want to, number one, vote with our efforts and our dollars for regenerative agriculture, and also what can we do if we individually, personally want to start to grow our own food or something along those lines. So I think that's everything that I want to say. I thought that was probably one of my most popular episodes as well. A lot of really, really great feedback, and I'm going to have Alan on for another episode this coming year. So that was episode 214. This is how we can save the planet, regenerative agriculture. All right, and then finally, one of my favorite talks for the year is episode 220, and this is top tips for health from a functional medicine doctor. This is with my homeboy, Dr. Brian Stepanenko, or he likes to go by Dr. Step. Okay, so he works alongside Dr. Gabrielle Lyon with the Muscle-Centric Medicine Institute, and this was just such a fun, awesome talk. What's the difference between conventional medicine and functional medicine? It's like asking what's the difference between conventional and regenerative agriculture, right? Functional medicine is root cause medicine. It's really trying to figure out why you're experiencing the symptoms that you're experiencing and what can we do to fix those symptoms, versus conventional medicine, which is here's your symptoms and here are the medications that we need to use to make you feel better with those symptoms. So it was just a really, really great talk. We talk about what is functional medicine, what's the difference between the two, and then what are things that we can do to self-assess to see what it is that we're doing that's working or not. How can we tell, how should things feel and be? And then what are things that we can do as action steps to move in the direction of healing ourselves? And then as a last resort, obviously, we can reach out to a functional medicine doctor that can support our efforts, right? One of my favorite things that we came up with for this talk was an acronym called SEX. And Dr. Stepp understands the SHT, and so that's how he came up with this acronym. He did it just for us. I'm sure he's going to use it moving forward with a lot of other groups and people. But so SEX stands for, number one, S. Sleep and stress. So sleep and stress are things that you can use to improve your health, but you can also look for signs and symptoms associated with sleep and stress to see if you're on the right track. All right. E stands for elimination habits and hydration. All right. So elimination habits meaning, are you pooping every day? By the way, you should have a poop a day. right? If you're pooping like a bunch of times in a day, that's probably a problem. If you're not pooping every day, then that's a problem, right? So, how does your elimination habits feel to you? You know, does it feel like good, solid, comfortable movements, or is there something problematic about it, you know? And then hydration, super important. There's signs and symptoms of dehydration, and then hydration in general is going to facilitate so many great things in the body, because you think about it, like our entire body is water. And so, you know, everything that's made up of the body is made of water. And then there's all these functions that require water. I mean, it's a crucial, integral part of who we are. So hydration is super important. We talked a lot about that. And then the X in sex is exercise, how much, what's ideal, what type, and then also mindfulness-based physical activity we threw in there. So, and that's things that you can use to gauge how well you're doing in life, right? So you've got some things that you can do that, like, you know, if you turn to this activity on a daily basis, the days that you're doing really good with your health and your life, like it's like you do really good at this activity, and the days that you're not, your activity kind of sucks. So, and you have to find out what those activities are. And so we talk a little bit about that in there. So anyway, I just thought it was just such a fun, awesome, exciting talk. And I can't wait to have Dr. Stepp on again. And he said that he's going to make a plug for us to get Dr. Gabrielle Lyon on this year. So I'm super excited about that. So anyway, those are my top episodes. I hope that recap is useful. If you got any questions, comments, feedback, sign remarks, you can send it my way. I'm not going to say keep it real yet, because I do just want to make one more plug. Now is the time. We're starting in 2023. Make your health and yourself a priority. All right, it is the most important thing that you can focus on. Do not feel selfish for taking time to focus on your health, because when you're selfish with your health, it's actually very selfless, because it makes you better for everything else that you care about. And I'm here to help. I do personal private health coaching, which is phenomenal. It's powerful. If you're interested in that, I can give you cell phone numbers of 10 people that you can call up and just see what their experience was like. And then also we have our online community, SuperHumans United, which is just an amazing place. Would love to see you there. So again, questions, comments, feedback, snide remarks, send it my way, and keep it real.